Hello and welcome to this video guide for the free form submission handler that we offer. Now I'm going to go through all the same steps as we have within the text instructions here, but I'm going to visually show you what we're talking about and probably give a little bit more detail. So the very first thing you need to do is you need to download and save the latest version of the process form script to your local website's roots folder. And so the root folder is where your home page or your index page is located. And the reason we say the root folder is because we then tell you in all of your forms, you find your form in your web editor, you switch to code view and make sure that the action is set to what you see here, which is slash process form, and the slash indicates to the browser to go to the root folder of your website. So it's just a way of having a common location that you can then specify in your form where to go look for the form handler. So once you've downloaded it, save it there, and then you're going to, the basics are, download, save, and publish that process form PHP script up to your server. Now, if you are migrating from a submit.serverapps.com form, and in our web templates we previously had it configured to submit to this service, and that service is now retired. But if you are transitioning from that, this is pretty much all of the configurations that you'll probably need to do. And so there's going to be some configurations already in your form, such as any email addresses that you want to send to. And but we also recommend that you go through and set up the default settings. If you happen to never set up any of the configuration elements in your forms, then you might not have set up an overriding email address, and so you are going to need to set up the basic configurations as we go through here in the next couple minutes. All right, so moving along, we have about six steps, 6 configuration elements anyways, in the process form code. So the very first step is we're going to, need to open that up in your website editor, all right? So this is what you're going to see here. The current version as of this video is version 1.7. There's a short revision history here, and of course we explained where to find the instructions. So you'll see here that there are 6 items that you can configure for the basic configuration. The first one is the send to email, and that's where we're sending the results to. Okay, so this is the default configuration, so that if you don't have any overriding configurations already in your form from, say, the submit.serverapps.com settings, and you're just going with a fresh form, you certainly need to configure this. So this is your email address. It can be anything. It's recommended that it's something for your website. So if you're at, say, bobswebsite.com, it's bob@bobswebsite.com, whatever your email address is. You can try using Gmail or Hotmail or Yahoo or AOL or Comcast or Verizon or whatever email address you might have as well that is not a part of your website. But I will say that often emails that are generated from a form submission tool such as this, because it is sent through what's called the PHP SendMail system, they often get filtered out as possible spam. So it's best that you can try to send to your own email on your own domain. Okay. So the next step is the send from email. Now, this is also, it's best to use an email from your domain, because if you're saying, hey, I'm sending it from my Gmail account, well, you're not sending it from your Gmail account. You're sending it from your web server. And so it's best to use an administrator account that is not the same as the send to email. And the reason I say it's best to use a different email that is not the same as the send to email, because some web servers can identify that when you're sending it to, say you send it to Bob at bobswebsite.com and also from Bob at bobswebsite.com, the web server will recognize that Bob really didn't send an email from his actual email account to himself and will filter to spam. So it's best to use something like admin at bobswebsite.com or no reply at bobswebsite.com or something like that. An email account that does exist, but is different from the send to email. Moving along the reply to field. Okay, so this is an optional mechanism, but say you are having customers send in the form submission, and you might want to reply directly to them via email. And this is where you will want to map to an existing field. Okay. So I don't have this field already, so I'm going to create one. So this is an example form, and we're going to call this user email. One last thing is make this an actual email address, and perhaps we want to make it required as well. Okay, so we're going to hit save, and then we're going to go check it out on the website. I'm just going to run a little refresh here, reload it. Okay, so you can type in something here, and if you try to submit, it's going to say please include an @ and email address, and also that it's going to be a required field. So if you hit submit, please make sure you fill this data. So what we're going to do is we're going to need to make sure that we map this field into our configuration settings. So if we go back to here, we've given the name for the field as user email, and so in our field here, we're going to map this to the field user email. So whatever the name is that you give to the input field that you want the user to enter their email address, and then subsequently when you receive the submission, you want to reply to that email address. This is how you do it. You map it to that field. So it's a bit of an advanced technique. Try it out. It's pretty straightforward as you've seen there. I'm just giving it a name here of user email, and then in my script here I'm submitting or putting that same name in the reply to field. Okay. So then the next step here is the confirmation page. So you're going to want to change this to an actual page that exists. Okay. So for example, I might want to change, I forgot to change this step, so maybe I should do that. So maybe I should say, something like and here you might want to just change it to a confirmation page. Now I don't have a confirmation page. I'm just going to redirect to our home page. The next step, step 5, the email subject. So the email that gets sent to you, what do you want it to say in the subject? Well, I'm just going to say web form results. Okay. Step 6 is a new setting. So if you've used our form handler before, you'll know that the setting is brand new. And you can have this set to one of 3 settings. I'll just show you in our instructions. We have standard, which is the default setting where there's a bit of white space. The field name and the field value are on 2 separate lines, and then there's an extra space before you go to the next set of information, the next field in the email message that's sent to you. Compact basically puts the field name and the field value on the same line, and then there's no additional white space like double spacing between the field data. And then HTML, and now this is something that you may choose to use or not. It will be formatted within an HTML table. Some email servers do not receive this type of email very well. They'll mark it as spam, or they may or may not modify the message so that the HTML is not rendered. So try it out with your server, see if it works. If it does, then I do recommend the HTML because it looks nice. It's formatted much nicer than the standard or the compact, but it's you might want to fall back to the compact if the HTML does not work. All right, and then the last step here. Now, of course, we've gone through the last configuration element for the basic settings right here. But the last couple steps here is we need to make sure that the action attribute for your form tag in your web page points to this script. So that's the action. So you find the form tag within your page, and and change it to the process form. It's also important to make sure that the method is set to post. Now, I have seen in some servers that they don't allow the post mechanism. It's kind of bizarre. I'd say it's less than 1% of the servers that we've seen. And in that case, you can go with the default get method. So you use the word get here instead of post. But so we need to make sure that the action is set up properly. And so in this particular example, my form in my page, I'm actually using a modified version called test. But this is where you make sure that the action is set to the name of the process script within your website, okay? And I've got methods set to post there. So typically you would see this. And that's how you want to have that set up. But for the purpose of this particular test that I'm doing for you, I've renamed my file, okay? So the last step then is to make sure that you upload your form as well as upload the updated process form.php out to your server. Okay. And that concludes the basic configurations. So at this point, when you go and view this page, we'll just go back to the example. Here, your form is set up. Okay, and you can double check that if you have, I'm using Chrome here, and it shows us the different elements, test, process, form, method equals post, and that's more or less all that needs to happen on the form aspect of things, because most of the configuration is done on the server-side script, which is what this process form.php is. Okay, now getting into something more advanced, and that is adding reCAPTCHA. Now reCAPTCHA is a fantastic tool that's been available from Google for some time. They have now gone and updated it to version 2, and we only recommend version 2 because it is so much better than version 1. So we don't provide instructions for version 1 any longer. But if you want to go and put reCAPTCHA, and we do recommend you put reCAPTCHA in your form. You might be like, well, what's reCAPTCHA? Well, follow the rest of this video and you'll see. But we recommend putting it in there and using version 2. If you are dead set on using version 1, you can change this version here to 1, and then you're going to have to follow some instructions available from Google. We give that ability in here, but we honestly don't recommend it. Okay. So the first thing that you're going to need to do, and we're just going to switch back to the instructions. This is the reCAPTCHA setup, and again, it is optional. But what you're going to need to do is, the step first thing is go to Google, follow this link, and sign up for a key. Okay, so I've gone and already done this. When you go and sign up for, if you don't have a Google account already, you probably should sign up for that. But it will ask you to do that or log in. You can register a site, give it a label or description. I've given mine i3D themes. And then you can give it one or more website domains. Now you don't need to do www.yourwebsite.com. Just for this example, I'll show you. I've listed i3dthemes.com and luckymarble.com. Okay. And once you do that, you're going to see a keys panel. Okay. You can probably ignore step 1, step 2 because I'm going through this already and giving you the simplified version of the code. But you're going to have two things, the site key and the secret key. The site key is what used to be called the public key, and the secret key is what used to be called the private key. All right. So what you're going to need to do is copy this secret key, whatever it is when you go and sign up, and place it in your secret key right here. And then you're done. You can save and you can publish it up to your server, okay? And I'm going to do that right now. As you can tell here, we have a message that says, stop, do not modify anything below this line. We really, really mean that. Some people think that they're really super, good at all of this and that they're trying to troubleshoot why the form is not working, and they think, oh, maybe we should go and modify stuff like this, which you shouldn't, or something else somewhere down in here. And we really recommend you don't don't even go past line number 76 here, okay? It'll cause all sorts of problems, and then you're going to have to start from scratch to try to figure things out, or call on us for support, in which case we're going to charge you. So really, you're done once you're done at this point, okay? Within this file. So we've uploaded it, we've saved it, we've uploaded it, and then we're going to try to put the next step on here, okay? All right, so let's take a look at our instructions once again. Okay, so the first step was placing the secret key within the process form, and we don't recommend changing the second option. The third step is to go and grab this little snippet of code and paste it in your form. Okay, we're going to do that. We're going to place it right where we want the Google CAPTCHA, right there. Now you're going to see here that there's something called your site key. And this is where we go and grab the site key, not the secret key, but this is also what used to be called the public key. We go back here and we grab the site key. We go and place it within the page and save. Okay, and you're done at this point. You've published it up onto your server. Let's take a look. So we go to the example and we reload. Now, isn't this great? It puts out a little box here and with a checkbox that says, I'm not a robot. Now, I've gone and done a bunch of testing here. And so I've submitted a whole bunch of tests in preparing for this video. And in doing so, I've triggered Google saying, whoa, there's a lot of submissions coming from this IP address. Please enter in the text. Okay. For most situations, you're only going to ever just check this, and it's going to do a little, pause, which we're going to see here, and then it's going to give a check mark. Most people will never have to enter in this, okay? But Google's keeping track of how many submissions per IP address. And so if you happen to be sending a lot of form submissions, you're going to get this little configuration here where you have to enter in what you see down below. But in most situations, you will not. And that's why it's so great. You see, I got a check mark. That's great. So I should enter in my name and my email address. Ooh, this again is going to be mapped to the reply, and then we hit submit. And this should, at this point, send us on to luckymarble.com homepage. If it doesn't, then it's going to throw up an error, and this will be good for testing. No, that means it's sent. Great. Isn't that awesome? So there you go. It is sent along, and I'm just going to check my email box, but I'm pretty certain that that email would have come along. All right, so there's one other new feature in the reCAPTCHA version 2, and that is to provide the ability to have a reCAPTCHA more than once on a page. So say you have more than one form, and you want to make sure that the user, both forms are going to be protected against spam. Well, in the previous version 1, it was near impossible to make this happen. It was at best flaky, can we say that? And then at worst, it was, just didn't work at all. Now with version 2 of reCAPTCHA, they've given us the ability to do this. But I warn you, it's a bit technical. But that's why I'm doing this video, is to show you, okay? And we'll also take a look at the instructions at the same time. So step 3B, which is using multiple forms on a web page. This is advanced, okay? So pay attention. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to go and grab this little snippet of code, just as we show here. And we're going to need to go to our page where we have multiple forms. So I've gone and done this already. So the first thing is to go and place this snippet of code where we want it, okay? And if you have two forms, which is obviously the situation here, we're going to want to go and place it in both forms. And then what we're going to want to do is give it a unique ID. So in this one, I'm going to call it reCAPTCHA 1, and this one reCAPTCHA 2. And it's important that they are unique, because that's the next step. All right, so the next step, we're just going to go back to our instructions. is to copy and place the following snippet just above the closing head tag. So we're going to just copy that, and then we're going to go back to our, and just before the closing head tag, just as you see here, we're pasting, okay? And then what we're going to need to do is copy this section as many times as you have forms in your page. So we're going to do that. So we only have 2, and so we're going to map the reCAPTCHA IDs, just as we have this, like this little field here, to whatever you called this, and also for the next one as well. So I called it reCAPTCHA 1 and then reCAPTCHA 2. Now remember, in the previous example, we spoke about the your site key. So we're going to go and find again where we had that public key. Okay, let's go find it at Google. All right, here it is again. Oops, we don't need to see that. Copy that, and we go back here, and we say our site key, also known as a public key, is there. Make sure there's no trailing spaces, okay? That's really important. Trailing or preceding spaces here. Make sure it is just that key. Okay, so again, this is the public key. And then we save. Now there's one of the configuration options. You can change this to dark if you want. There's 2 themes available from Google, light and dark. And that is it. We save. And so I'll just explain briefly what's going on here is that this script is loading and it's saying defer the load until the end of the page. If the browser doesn't observe the defer mechanism, then the onload mechanism is going to load the onload callback, which is what this is called here, and that the rendering is explicit, which means render through this JavaScript here. Now you can have more. You can say, hey, let's make number 3 if we want. Of course, you have to have 3 forms if you want. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to do 2. Okay. So hope that makes sense. We're going to save. And we're going to go back to our example here. The 2 dual forms. I'm going to hit reload, and we're going to see 1, 2, light and dark. Right? So we enter our name. Okay. And I am not a robot. It's checking. Oh, geez. Because I've entered so many forms. Geez, I wish I should change my IP address. Verify. It's going to verify. Ah, very good. I'm not a robot. I've just verified that. And again, you're not going to get that verification mechanism unless you've submitted a lot of forms as one form. And that's really the beautiful thing about this is that it's going to keep it filters out all the bad bots, and then if it suspects that perhaps something's funny going on, it's going to throw up this mechanism, and it's going to prompt the user to verify, right? So if I hit verify, it's going to say, oh, if I just type in anything here, it's going to say, sorry, it doesn't work, okay? So yeah, you can't do anything until it's verified. Or you can like refresh, or you can even listen to it. It's get an audio challenge instead. So you can download the audio as MP3. And then of course there's some information here as to what's going on. But yeah, this is the beautiful thing about it. Now, the really great thing is that if you didn't have the Google reCAPTCHA in the public form, but you've configured it already in the process script, it's going to prompt saying, hey, you haven't entered in a key or whatever. So once you've gone and changed, set a, where did we go here? Once you've gone and set this, if the verification doesn't come back from Google, then you're not going to be getting any spam. Okay, so that's pretty much it in a nutshell. That's the whole kit and caboodle. The only thing that I haven't touched on here in this entire video, this is going on just about a half an hour now, is the submit.server apps configurations. Now, we used to run a frame server, I should say a hosted solution called submit.server apps. But because of certain legislation changes and anti-spam, we decided that it's going to be better if you host the form handling solutions yourself on your server. And that particular service had the ability to have a confirmation page element within it, configuration element, as well as email addresses. And so if you had them in your form already, then this script will pick up on them. And if you want to go and change them or strip them out, then the form handler will use the default settings that you've already set up and configured here. Anyways, I hope you found this helpful and that you go smoothly for you. And yeah, we'd love to hear any feedback if you have any.